What is up, everyone? Thanks for being fans on. Also, Baron making an appearance right behind me. That's my dog. I try to get him to move. He doesn't want to move. He wants to sleep there. So we're gonna have him in the background, I guess, for this conversation here as we talk about all things Raiders. Any questions you guys have, fire them in either through the YouTube channel that you're watching right now. If you comment live on the video, or just send them through Twitter. You can do that any time of the week, but right now, if you pop them in at Adam Hill LVRJ or at Vegas Nation, you guys can send in questions. We can answer them here on the program. Jump right in to start with the Super Bowl and how it relates potentially to the Raiders. Obviously, the Raiders played both of those teams this year. They played the Chiefs twice, the Buccaneers once. Both of those teams did come into Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas. We got an up close look at both teams that were in the Super Bowl this year. Uh, Obviously, the Raiders did get that win over the Chiefs. They played them close in the second game that was here at Allegiant and uh, almost pulled it off at the end of the game. Obviously, the Chiefs got that big touchdown to change things and change the outcome right at the end. But Raiders played them very tough, and actually, even though the final score didn't look very good, they played the Buccaneers fairly tough as well. So I think listen, that's not like a moral victory, not anything you can hang your hat on necessarily. But it's just something to look at. And I know Darren Waller took notice, obviously the star Raiders tight end today, doing an interview and saying, we don't feel like we're that far behind the Chiefs. Played them very, very close, both games, won one of them. Uh, Only team to beat them this season in the regular season until the Super Bowl, with Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback. So I think there is a little bit that the Raiders look at and say, you know, they're even though the record's not great, they weren't in the playoffs. The Chiefs were more consistent throughout the season. There are some positives, I think, that the Raiders can take away from that and say there's some things that they can do. Now, as Darren Waller pointed out in that interview, one of the things is being consistent throughout the whole season. The Raiders through much of the year we're right there with the Chiefs. I mean, if they pull that game off, that's here in Las Vegas. They're only a game back, more than midway through the season. They're fighting the Chiefs maybe down to the wire, but instead that loss kind of sent their season in the wrong direction. And Darren Waller was saying you just can't have that happen. You can't fall apart from that one loss. You can't fall apart down the stretch. You have to show a way to get better and better as the season progresses. And I think that's the next step for the Raiders. Obviously, the last two seasons, the last 5-6 games have not gone well at all for this team. So that is kind of the next step in their progression is getting better throughout the season instead of fading down the stretch. And that is the sign of a good team. The Buccaneers, like look at that example. The Buccaneers were right about where the Raiders were through 9-10 games this year. And while the Raiders really struggled the last month and a half of the season, the Buccaneers played their best football. They got better. They figured out some of their deficiencies and they figured out how to overcome them. And they did not lose another game after that Chiefs game that they lost at home. So that's kind of where the Raiders want to stretch. They're kind of good with where they are the first half of seasons. Figure out a way to make your team better the second half instead of kind of fading as they have the last two seasons. That is the next for the Raiders. The other, I think, takeaway from the Super Bowl for the Raiders and fans and looking at how you're kind of constructing this team and how you're building it. And listen, it's no secret. The pass rush has to get better. The defensive line has to get better for the Raiders. Everyone knows that. They've invested some in the draft the last couple of years. They've tried to go through free agency a little bit as well, but you just have to get better in that regard. And with this Gus Bradley system, the new defensive coordinator, the pass rush is a premium. And you talk all the time about scheme and how can you generate pressure, how can you figure out ways to get to the quarterback, how can you design a blitz that's going to get home, all of those things. Well, the Buccaneers just said no, just get really, really good players along the defensive line to win their battles. And it helps when the Chiefs don't have any of their starting offensive linemen out there playing in their normal positions. But still, you saw what a pass rush can do. The Buccaneers blitzed the least amount of times of any team in the Super Bowl. They got pressure on the quarterback the most amount of times of any team in the Super Bowl. That is remarkable. Without blitzing, they generated a pressure rate of over 50% in that game. Astounding. It's insane what talent like that can do along the defensive front. And listen, it's not easy. You've got to get lucky here and there. They took a guy in Shaq Barrett who, you know, had one breakout season, but he had been playing as a reserve for much of his career in Denver. They take him, bring him in, turn him loose, and he's awesome. And Ndamukong Suh, who everyone knows the talent, the ability that he has, but he's getting later in his career. Um, you know, he could be had by some teams. The Buccaneers got um, we're back here. So you know, it's finding guys on the other side. Jason Pierre-Paul, who was a big free agent signing, bring him in. Vita Vea, who they found and just kind of discovered and drafted him and brought him in, and like all of a sudden now you've got this dominant defensive front. That is that is what the Raiders are shooting for. That is kind of their blueprint because it's a similar system. What you saw out of the Bucks defense is kind of what the Raiders want to do: generate pressure in the front four, let the other guys cover, um, and then you have all of a sudden you have seven guys covering, and you're still getting to the quarterback. That is an ideal for any team, but certainly the Raiders, I think, were looking at that and saying, yes, that's what you want to do. And again, not easy, and you know it's not something that can be done overnight, but through acquisitions of guys that maybe are under the radar a little bit, maybe guys you take a chance on that other teams have red flags about, finding studs in the draft, through that combination, get a guy here, get a guy there, and all of a sudden you have this dominant defensive front. So you're not going to match that, but that is the blueprint for kind of what you want to do if you are the Raiders. Again, any questions, make sure you drop them into the video here on the YouTube page as we're going through some of your offseason questions about the Raiders. I know I had a question from Twitter earlier, so I'll try to grab that one as we're sitting here. Um, no surprise, it is about Derek Carr and the potential for him to be dealt. So let's look at this. I know there was some reporting out the last 24 hours or so about some sources saying the Raiders are not going to trade Derek Carr. I think that's a developing situation. So I do not believe. Let's just start right from the top. I do not believe the Raiders are actively trying to get rid of Derek Carr. I don't think that is part of their plan. I don't think they came into this offseason saying we need to trade Derek Carr. Derek Carr is not the problem. He could definitely be part of the solution. He had a very good season. Now the problem when you have it's not a problem, but one of the things that develops when you have a very, very good season is that people are going to be interested in getting you. Like that's just a fact of life. Like, um, does anybody think the Seahawks are done with Russell Wilson and trying to move on from Russell Wilson? No. But as Russell Wilson said this morning in an interview and kind of leaked out the last couple of days, he's sure that the Seahawks are taking calls about trading for him. Of course they are. Like, Aaron Donald is the best defensive player in the league. He just won the defensive player of the year for the Rams. Guess what? The Lions called and asked if they could trade for him. That's what happens when you're really good, when you have a really good season. So yes, I do believe teams are calling about Derek Carr. I don't believe the Raiders are calling other teams and saying, "Hey, we're trying to trade him." I think they're getting calls, and it would be silly of a team to not take those phone calls. Like, why would if somebody calls you, even with the Aaron Donald situation, which they're never trading him from the Rams, but even if you get a phone call and somebody says, "Hey, we want to trade for your guy," you say, "Okay, what are you willing to give us?" And if somebody came back and said, "We're willing to give you, 12 first round picks for this guy," nobody's untouchable. So you're going to take a phone call. You're going to listen to what people say. And I think the situation with Derek Carr, as was written about by Vinny Bonsignore, my colleague, who does great work here with the Review Journal of Vegas Nation. He said basically in the story that Derek Carr played his way into being a valuable commodity that teams are going to try to make offers for. That's what the story said. And now there's other people trying to refute it or whatever and saying, hey, he's not on the trading block. Hey, he never was on the trading block. But if teams are going to offer you 2 first round picks, you should be listening. You should hear them out and hear what they have to say. And by the way, if that means that you can get 2 first round picks and then package 4 for one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league and Deshaun Watson, yeah, you would try to do that. But again, the Texans are now saying Deshaun Watson's not available. The Raiders are saying Derek Carr's not available. None of those things are true. Everyone in the league is available for the right price. Everyone. There's not an untouchable. Maybe Mahomes. But I'm like, but even with Mahomes, if somebody called and said, we'll give you our first round pick for the next 20 years, I think you still might say no. But nobody is untouchable in this league. So that's the bottom line on that. So I think it's certainly worth watching, seeing how this market develops. I think it's a very intriguing quarterback market all throughout the league, and the Raiders are somewhat involved in that, uh, based on you know whether they'd be interested in moving on. I mean, if you were to say, hey, they could maybe get Carson Wentz, yeah, you're not really necessarily that interested. I don't know that that's an upgrade right away from Derek Carr, but if it's Deshaun Watson and he's one of the three best quarterbacks in the league, then you have to try to pay attention. So watch what happens in the Carson Wentz market. I know the Eagles are expressing frustration that they're not getting the offers that they wanted. So maybe they decide to end up keeping him. I think it's just a smoke screen to try to generate interest and try to drive up the offers. But we'll see what happens there. And his contract is very difficult to move. And then you start looking at some of the other dominoes that could fall. Like where could guys be going? And if if Watson's not available and Wentz isn't available, or they're not willing to trade him for whatever is being offered, who are some of those other quarterbacks that can move? Like, do you go all the way down to like a Teddy Bridgewater? Is he going to be a guy that somebody acquires to fill in somewhere? We don't know, but what I am kind of implying here is if there was no Watson and Rodgers isn't available, that's another big speculation that Aaron Rodgers could be on the market. Um, if none of these guys are available and nobody's going to be moving these guys, then all of a sudden Derek Carr becomes an even more valuable commodity. Maybe the potential 2 first-round picks becomes 2 first-round picks and something else, because he would then be the marquee name on the market, the best available guy at a team like the Colts, um, a team like potentially the Bears, if they don't do the Wentz deal, a team like even the 49ers, then becomes very, very interested and almost desperate because uh, they think they're a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl title, and that they might really throw a lot at you there. So definitely monitor the quarterback market around the league, in terms of where some of these guys are going or where they could potentially end up, and how that could relate to Derek Carr. Um, I think there were some draft questions that people asked too. We have so much time to talk about the draft. That's at the end of April, and we're going to be doing a lot of draft. I'm actually in the middle of working on my first mock draft right now. Last year, learned some lessons in doing it for the first time. Was way too trade happy, talked too much about trades, and then you kind of throw those off yourself. So working on that first mock draft right now, and I'll be interested to see where the Raiders go and who they have available. Try to look up my choice right now for you guys. I can maybe give a little bit of a sneak peek on who I potentially think the Raiders could be getting. Um, so I'll just give it away to you guys who are watching here, and you can check out our whole first round. But I have Micah Parsons falling to the Raiders at 17. He's a linebacker from Penn State. Really versatile, can do a little bit of everything from the linebacker position. Really good in the passing game, which I think would be pretty helpful. I know Littleton last year was brought in to be that guy. I think he can still be effective, but in this, in the current climate of the league, you need 2 linebackers who can be effective against the pass. You got Kwiatkowski, who was really good against the run last year, in stretches for sure when he was on the field. So another guy that is versatile, that can do good work against the pass, and also is a really good pass rusher as well for a coverage linebacker. He's a really, really good all around player. I think he's a top 10 talent in this draft. It's just so many quarterbacks could potentially go that kind of falls you down the board a little bit. But I think if Micah Parsons were to fall to the Raiders at that 17 spot in this draft, I think they'd be very happy, and I think you, as fans, would be pretty happy. Although I know everybody is clamoring for an edge rusher, I think that could be addressed perhaps in free agency. We'll see how that kind of plays out. But I think the key is just get as many talented defensive players as you can in this draft, and I think that'll be the direction that they try to go in. So look for that mock draft coming up in the next few days at the Review Journal and at Vegas Nation, and make sure you do that throughout the draft process as well. We'll have so much on the draft. I know Vinny was just down at the Senior Bowl, so he'll have some things to share with you guys as well, as he kind of doles out that content over the next couple of weeks, and then helps us out with our draft coverage. Kind of informs us on a lot of what we're doing in the draft coverage, what he was able to learn from the Senior Bowl, not only from some of the players, but from some of the coaches and everybody down there as well. Well, abbreviated edition today uh, of of the Vegas Nation fan zone. We do appreciate some of you guys' questions coming in. Like I said, there was a bunch of draft questions, but I think we're going to save those and kind of go throughout them, go over them as we approach. But I did want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, at least of what we're thinking early on, what could potentially happen. But all of that draft stuff is, of course. So, questions to YouTube, through Facebook, Twitter, myself, on the Vegas Nation account. Everything we do up there. Get the app, Vegas Nation app, and reviewjournal.com. That'll do it. Check us out next Tuesday and every single day with all the great content with the Raiders and the Review Journal. We'll talk to you guys again soon.